If you watched my spoiler-free review of Vikings Season 6 Part 1, you will know that I really enjoyed this season because of its high production value, its amazing cast of characters brought to life by some fantastic actors, and its overarching themes within it were really well written and directed. In this video I want to talk about some of the spoilers within this season and talk about my thoughts of them. So without a grand intro, let's get into it. So in my last video I talked about how I really liked how they set up this story of Ragnarok, the end of all things, and this was shown multiple times within the episodes through characters' actions, situations, and just a general understanding about how Ragnarok works. The links to the gods is always interesting, and as I have said before, there's always been this link between the character and a Norse god. For example, you could argue that Ragnar had elements of Odin in him as well as some of Thor. But the clear ones we saw in this season was Gunhild, who has that intense speech with Bjorn's now second wife Ingrid. After she states about crying solid gold, we then get that brilliant shot of her on her own in bed crying gold, showing that she herself could be Freya, and those golden tears signify a great loss, and as we know from the episode, she loses her son in the build up to the battle. One thing I do wonder is, the story of Freya is she gets banished from Midgard after betraying Odin. I wonder if that is in relation to her relationship with Harald and that she isn't fully allowed to go there, or if it's going to be the other way around and she marries Harald and Bjorn banishes her from Kattegat. I know he appears to be dead at the end of the episode, but bear with me, I will get onto that. So Gunhild crying golden tears was extremely interesting because it now begs the question, is she Freya and is she actually a god? We then had Uber and his change in appearance. Now don't get me wrong, Uber is probably the most boring son of Ragnar that's been, apart from Sigurd, may he rest in peace, but I really feel like Uber has a set role that will be established going forward, and this tattoo that he has in this show is significant to represent that he's actually the Odin part of Ragnar. In Norse mythology, Odin has a missing eye because he constantly sought out knowledge and in the end traded his eye with Mimir for all the knowledge and wisdom in the worlds. It's no coincidence that Uber now has a tattoo on the side of his eye, which continues the theme of Uber constantly having problems with his eye, like when Uber decided to leave Ivar in York and after his fight with the Danes at the end of the last season, where he chose the Norse gods over the Christian gods. He is now in Iceland seeking out for knowledge about this golden land and the disappearance of Floki, and if he finds Floki, I wonder if it'll be like an Odin meets Mimir moment and Floki explains everything he needs to know going forward. To me, that is what it feels like it's setting up for. Obviously, you'll probably have some turmoil in the Iceland camp, but I do feel like Uber is setting up to be a powerful character, and it would be sad if it doesn't turn out to be that way. The joining of both Fitzek and Ivar was extremely interesting. I still don't know what to make of it, because on one hand, they seem to be happy to be back together again, with Ivar making it seem like nothing happened. I mean, remember that Kattegat battle? Yeah, me neither. But now Fitzek seems to be a bit unhinged. It's interesting to see where these two stand now. I mean, the fact that the first thing Fitzek said to Ivar was, "I killed Lagertha," sort of showed that there is a lot of tension there. Almost as if Fitzek is trying to show that he isn't following anyone anymore. He is his own self. And that's what that battle with the gods was previously in the past few episodes. But this is so interesting because now you have a dynamic where Oleg is clearly trying to manipulate Ivar through his wife, but now you have Fitzek lurking in the background, and I wonder if something's going on between Fitzek and Oleg to get rid of Ivar, or if Fitzek is just biding his time and is going to get rid of everyone who has wronged him, including Bjorn and Uber. It's also interesting to see that Fitzek has never actually lost a battle this whole time. Every battle he is in, he wins, be that abroad in England or in Norway. No matter whose army he is with, he always wins the battle. And well, it was proof at the end of this part of the season as he won once again with the Rus, despite not actually really doing anything. So going forward, it will be interesting to see who he sides with, be that Ivar, Bjorn, which I highly doubt, or if he just goes rogue and takes everyone on and is actually the real star of the show. Going back to Ivar and Fitzek meeting, I think it's also very symbolic of the two wolves coming together to trigger the start of Ragnarok. I mean, this shot with both of them on the boat, for example, they are both wearing wolf fur with different colours. And again, if you look at Norse mythology, you will see that Ragnarok is believed to start when the two wolves come together and swallow the moon. For me, this is that moment. What the moon is, I'm not sure, but maybe it has to do with this next event that took place. This season we saw the death of Lagertha, and I'll be completely honest, as I said in my last video, I was getting very bored of her storyline, and I personally felt like her acting was getting a bit stale, especially when you had to compare it to this incredible actor right here. But I got to say, her death was so perfect, and you know, all round it was one of my favourite scenes in this season. Not because I dislike her, but I felt like it was the death that we'd been building for seasons, and to come at the hands of Hvitserk was very poetic, especially as we had always had the prophecy about Lagertha dying to a son of Ragnar. Her funeral as well was beautifully shot, incredibly acted by Alexander Ludwig, and again, like I mentioned in my last video, the juxtaposition between singing, Bjorn's speech, and everything else just made the scene flow nicely.
I have loved you more than I have loved any other. Farewell, Lagertha. Farewell.
It was a truly great send-off for a character, and whilst I would have loved to seen Travis Fimmel come back and be with her in this episode, I thought it was still nice to see the two's images lie together as we said our final goodbye. A very poetic and a lovely send-off for our beloved Shield Maiden who had been there since the beginning. I must say I did find it funny how Uber discussed with the seer which son of Ragnar it could have been that killed Lagertha, and after ruling out himself, Bjorn, Sigurd and Ivar still couldn't work out who it was. It doesn't bode well for Detective Uber in Iceland. What I theorise, and this is questionable but still, is that Lagertha could be Baldur. Now I know Baldur's a male god, but Lagertha resembles a lot of what Baldur is like. For example, she is extremely idolised by people of Kattegat, and just everywhere really, because of her history and being that legendary shield maiden. No one was really able to kill her at all in battles, and she was just this untouchable warrior, a bit like her son. But with her death sparked mourning from everyone. She had the biggest funeral to date, and it just devastated all of our big characters, even Uber, which didn't make a lot of sense considering she killed his mum, but oh well. During her death as well, we then get the winter, ice over the lake and everything, which could be the winter before Ragnarok. Soon after her death, we also have the Rus invasion and Bjorn seeking the help of Harold. So for me, her death really triggered the start of Ragnarok, which is exactly what the mythology states when Baldur dies. So for me, Lagertha could technically be symbolic of Baldur's storyline, but then you also have Bjorn's storyline. Bjorn throughout the season for me was a bit irritating and kind of felt like he didn't really know where he stood anymore. Starting off, he stupidly banishes the guys who supported Ivar and branding them in the process, which isn't going to do any good to be honest. Then he tried to get Harold back, getting betrayed in the meantime and losing a lot of men. He then loses an election to Harold, who schemes behind his back, and then finds his mother has been killed by Hvitserk, who he also lets go and joins the Rus to then invade Harold's homeland in the last episode. So it wasn't really a good season for Bjorn, and I think we finally got to see how arrogant a character he is, where whatever he does he can't get wrong, and I think that's simply because he's been branded as Ironside for so long, and now it's finally catching up to him, the fact that he is losing respect because he's never had to get anything wrong before now. With his mother dead as well, I think he really doesn't have anything to live for, and I think we really see that in the last battle episode where he has to fight off against tons and tons of Rus. And also, can I just go onto a tangent here for a second and just say that the battle between the Rus, Harold and Bjorn was incredible, especially the shots of the boats docking and the Rus charging up the beach. It certainly wasn't Paris from season 3 or anything, but it was certainly cinematically incredible. Anyway, going back to Bjorn's story, during the battle, having it juxtaposed with his inner dialogue against Ivar was again so poetic, and it was great to see a battle of words as well as a real physical battle. It showed you who those two characters really are and how they view their role in the world. The cinematography as well was beautiful, having the two sit next to each other with a big distance between them really showed off their relationship at this point. It was also great near the end of the battle to see that Ivar had moved behind Bjorn and wasn't parallel to him anymore. A real shift in power, but was also symbolic of how Ivar eventually goes on to quote unquote kill Bjorn. That moment where he stabs Bjorn was so unexpected. I really did not see that coming, and it felt like the whole world stopped with the main character, this untouchable warrior being killed right there and then. It was also interesting to see how defeated King Harold had been very quickly into the battle. It really makes me wonder what he's going to do next season, because he looks to have just given up his crown very quickly because of how worried he is about Bjorn's influence. But now with Bjorn supposedly gone, I wonder what's next for King Harold, because I mean historically he is the real king of Norway, so I'm intrigued to see where this goes. The ending of this season really showed to me that Ivar is the one to watch, but I do feel like there is a lot going on behind him. I do wonder how long he's going to be on the top of his game, especially with Vitzurk now being there and supposedly embracing the world of destruction. But finally I wanted to talk about this shot here with what clearly looks like Bjorn standing on top of a cliff looking out into the distance. We don't see his face or his physicality, we don't see the beach or anything around him, so there's no real timeline or anything about it, which means this could be a few months after the Rus left with Bjorn taking time to leave like Ragnar did, or this could be another internal thing with Bjorn where it's his inner peace now he's dead. It's certainly interesting as a setup for part 2 of this season, and I can't wait to see where this story goes. I think this certainly was a good building season that developed characters more and really set up the end of times. But those are some of my thoughts about some of the events that took place in this season. I hope to see more from Uber and see where Vitzurk's storyline goes, but sadly we got to wait until around November. But anyways guys, that's that, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit that like button and sub to the channel if you like this type of content. Let me know some of your theories in the comment sections below and what you thought of some of the spoiler moments in the season. Thank you all for watching again, and I will see you next time. Cheers guys.